In the year 2189, humanity had split into two distinct categories, the enhanced and the naturals. The enhanced, with their neural implants, genetic modifications, and cybernetic enhancements, dominated every aspect of society: business, politics, sports, and academia. The naturals, those who chose to remain unmodified, had become second-class citizens, relegated to menial jobs and living on the fringes of a society that viewed them as relics of a primitive past. Jack Reed was a natural, born in the declining, agricultural zone of what was once called the Midwest. He had grown up watching the gap between the two classes widen with each passing year. His parents, stubborn traditionalists, had refused enhancement for themselves and their son, believing that human ingenuity in its natural form was humanity's greatest asset. The Universal Combat Championship, UCC, was the most watched sporting event across Earth and its colonies. For 15 years, it had been dominated exclusively by the enhanced. These competitors moved faster than the eye could track, processed combat strategies with quantum computer precision, and possessed strength that would have seemed superhuman just a century earlier. When Jack announced his intention to compete in the UCC, his friends thought he was suicidal. His family begged him to reconsider. But Jack had spent years studying the one thing the enhanced often overlooked: the fundamental principles of combat that predated all technology. "The registration deadline is approaching," announced the automated system at the UCC headquarters in Neo San Francisco. Jack stood before the holographic interface, his unenhanced retinas requiring him to squint against the bright display. "Name?" the system inquired. "Jack Reed." "Enhancement profile?" Jack hesitated. "None. I'm natural." The system paused, its algorithms seemingly confused. "Verification required. Please confirm, no neural, genetic, or cybernetic enhancements?" "Confirmed. 100% natural." A red flag appeared on the display. "Warning: UCC competition involves extreme physical combat. Unenhanced participants face significant risk of serious injury or death. Do you acknowledge this risk?" "I do," Jack replied without hesitation. The system processed his application. "Application accepted. Note: this is the first natural application in 7 years." News of Jack's entry spread rapidly across the global networks. Enhanced competitors laughed. Media analysts predicted his hospitalization within seconds of his first match. Betting algorithms gave him odds of 10,000 to 1 point. Only one person took him seriously: Dr. Emily Warren, a sports physiologist who had grown disenchanted with enhancement technology. She approached Jack after watching him train in a dilapidated gym on the outskirts of the city. "You're either the bravest or the most foolish man I've ever met," she told him. "But I think you might see something the others don't." Jack continued his relentless training regimen, focusing on techniques that had been all but forgotten in the age of enhancement: breath control, muscle memory, and psychological warfare. He studied ancient martial arts texts and historical combat, footage from before the enhancement era. "The enhanced have weaknesses," he explained to Emily as they reviewed footage of previous championships. "They rely too heavily on their tech. They've forgotten what it means to truly adapt." Emily wasn't convinced. "Theory is one thing, Jack. But in that arena, you'll be facing competitors who can move faster than you can perceive and hit harder than your body can withstand." Jack just smiled. Speed and strength aren't everything. Sometimes the most advanced technology can be defeated by the simplest of strategies. As the championship approached, Jack became a sensation among the natural communities worldwide. They saw in him a champion for their fading way of life. The enhanced saw him as a curiosity at best, a tragic example of natural stubbornness at worst. The night before the competition, Emily found Jack meditating in the training room. "Are you ready?" she asked. Jack opened his eyes, a look of calm, determination on his face. "I've been ready my whole life. Tomorrow the enhanced will learn that being human still counts for something." The UCC arena dominated the Neo San Francisco skyline, a massive dome of transparent graphene and pulsing neon that could house over 100,000 spectators. Inside, the crowd buzzed with anticipation, many having come specifically to witness the novelty of a natural competitor. Jack stood in the preparation chamber, surrounded by technicians who seemed unsure what to do with a contestant who had no implants to calibrate, no enhancements to check. "I don't understand," said one technician, scanning Jack with a handheld device. "How do you expect to compete?" "The old-fashioned way," Jack replied, stretching his entirely organic muscles. His first opponent was Marcus Vega, a mid-tier enhanced fighter whose reflexes had been accelerated to process information at 10 times the speed of an unenhanced human. Marcus's skin was covered with a subdermal mesh that hardened on impact, and his vision had been modified to track movement patterns and predict trajectories. As they entered the octagonal arena, the contrast couldn't have been more stark. Marcus, with his iridescent subdermal implants glinting under the lights, moved with uncanny precision. Jack, wearing only simple fighting shorts, looked painfully ordinary by comparison. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice reverberated through the arena, "prepare for the most unusual match of the season. Marcus Lightning Vega versus Jack Reed, the first natural competitor in 7 years." The crowd roared, most in anticipation of the spectacle, rather than out of support for Jack. When the signal to begin came, Marcus moved with blinding speed, crossing the arena in a blur. He launched a flurry of strikes that would have overwhelmed any ordinary opponent. But Jack wasn't there. In the split second before Marcus moved, Jack had dropped to the ground and rolled, using a technique so antiquated that it didn't register in Marcus's predictive algorithms. The enhanced fighter struck empty air, momentarily, confused. "Impossible," Marcus muttered, his enhanced senses recalibrating. Jack didn't waste the opportunity. He swept Marcus's legs with a low kick, using the enhanced fighter's momentum against him. Marcus, for all his technological advantages, hadn't trained for opponents who used such primitive techniques. The crowd fell silent as Marcus hit the ground. He recovered quickly, but the shock was evident on his face. "Interesting strategy, Natural," Marcus said, circling more cautiously now. "But predictable." Jack didn't respond. He maintained a defensive posture, conserving energy while Marcus burned, through his impressive but finite reserves. The enhanced relied on quick victories, their systems optimized for bursts of extreme performance rather than endurance. Minutes passed. Marcus landed several punishing blows, each of which would have incapacitated a normal person. Jack absorbed them, using techniques to disperse the impact across his body. He was hurt, bleeding, but still standing. In the 7th minute, Marcus's movements became fractionally slower as his systems began prioritizing resources. Jack, who had been waiting for precisely this moment, suddenly switched from defense to offense. Using a combination of techniques drawn from ancient martial arts, Jack exploited the microsecond delays in Marcus's neural feedback loops. He focused on nerve clusters and weak points in the mesh armor that only someone with extensive knowledge of both human anatomy and enhancement technology would know about. With a perfectly executed combination strike, Jack disabled Marcus's primary neural interface. The enhanced fighter staggered, his systems trying to compensate. But Jack pressed his advantage, delivering a series of precise blows that culminated in a knockout. The arena was silent for 3 heartbeats before erupting in chaos. The impossible had happened. A natural had defeated an enhanced fighter. As medical drones rushed to tend to Marcus, Emily met Jack at the edge of the arena. "You did it," she whispered, helping him to the preparation chamber. "But you're badly hurt." Jack winced as he sat down. "It's just the beginning. They'll adapt their strategies now. The next fight will be harder." News of Jack's victory spread across the globe within minutes. Natural communities celebrated, while the enhanced community scrambled to explain the anomaly. Most dismissed it as luck, a fluke that wouldn't be repeated. Jack knew better. He had proven his theory. In their reliance on technology, the enhanced had developed blind spots. Now he had to prepare for his next opponent, who would not underestimate him. Jack's victory over Marcus sent shockwaves through the UCC. For the first time in over a decade, viewing figures for the preliminary rounds broke all records. Everyone wanted to see if the natural could repeat his performance, or if he would be crushed in his next match. The medical assessment after his fight revealed 3 cracked ribs, extensive bruising, and a hairline fracture in his left forearm. For an enhanced fighter, these injuries would be trivial. Their medical nanites would repair such damage within hours. Jack had no such luxury. "You should withdraw," Emily urged as she applied traditional medical treatments in their makeshift recovery room. "You've made your point. Going further with these injuries is suicide." Jack grimaced as she wrapped his ribs. This was never about making a point. It's about proving that humanity doesn't need to abandon its nature to evolve. His next opponent would be Talia Reeves, a fighter specialized in neural disruption techniques. Her enhancements allowed her to emit targeted electromagnetic pulses that interfered with the neural implants of other enhanced competitors. Against a natural, these would be useless, but her physical enhancements were still formidable. With only 48 hours between matches, Jack focused on recovery using techniques that had been all but forgotten in the age of instant medical solutions: herbal remedies, pressure point therapy, and deep meditative healing. Emily watched in amazement as Jack's focus seemed to accelerate his body's natural healing processes. "The body knows how to heal itself," Jack explained during a meditation session. "Modern medicine just made us forget how to listen to it." When Jack entered the arena for his second match, the crowd reaction had shifted. The natural communities had turned out in force, their chants of support nearly drowning out the skeptical commentary of the enhanced analysts. Talia waited in the center of the arena, her enhanced muscles coiled with potential energy. Unlike Marcus, she had studied Jack's previous match extensively. She would not underestimate him. "You're either very brave or very stupid," she said as they circled each other. "Either way, I respect the attempt." Jack nodded but remained silent, conserving his energy and focus. When Talia attacked, she avoided the predictable patterns that had been Marcus's downfall. Her movements were fluid, adaptable, combining enhanced strength with a fighting style that incorporated elements of unpredictability. Jack's defensive strategy from the first match proved ineffective. Within minutes, he had taken several powerful blows that reopened his healing injuries. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. As he struggled to adapt, the crowd began to murmur. It seemed the natural's luck had run out. Even his supporters began to fear they were about to witness a tragedy. In the preparation room, Emily watched the biotelemetry readings with growing alarm. Jack's heart rate was dangerously elevated, and impact sensors in the arena floor showed that the force of Talia's blows exceeded safety thresholds for unenhanced humans. Just as it seemed Jack would be defeated, he executed a move that no one had seen in competitive fighting for generations, a nerve strike technique developed in the 20th century and abandoned when enhancement technology made it obsolete. His fingers found precise pressure points in Talia's neck and shoulder, temporarily disrupting the connection between her natural nervous system and her enhancements. For 3 crucial seconds, Talia experienced a complete disconnect from her technological advantages. In those seconds, Jack delivered a series of strikes that targeted the human beneath the enhancements, culminating in a perfectly executed throw that slammed her to the mat with enough force to trigger the arena's injury protocols. Talia lay stunned, her systems rebooting as the referee counted down. By the time her enhancements came back online, the match was over. Jack stood victorious once again, though barely able to remain on his feet. His breathing was labored, and fresh blood stained his simple fighting gear. The medical team rushed into the arena, surprised to find that the injured party needing urgent attention was the winner, not the loser. As they carried Jack out on a stretcher, the crowd's reaction was split between stunned silence from the enhanced and thunderous applause from the naturals. In the medical bay, as doctors worked to stabilize his condition, Jack whispered to Emily, through swollen lips, 2 down. But the real challenge is just beginning. Emily looked at the tournament bracket displayed on the wall. Jack's next opponent would be Alexandra Kane, one of the top-seeded fighters whose enhancements were military-grade, designed for maximum lethality and controlled only by the strict rules of the UCC. "You can't win this one, Jack," Emily said, quietly. "Not in your condition. Not against her." Jack closed his eyes, his mind already formulating strategies. Sometimes winning isn't about being stronger or faster. Sometimes it's about understanding what victory really means. The medical team wanted to disqualify Jack on health grounds, but UCC regulations allowed fighters to continue if they could pass basic physical functionality tests. Through sheer force of will, Jack managed to stand, walk, and demonstrate adequate Coordination, though every movement sent waves of pain through his injured body. "This is beyond reckless," the lead doctor told Emily as Jack signed the medical waiver. "He's functioning at less than 40% capacity. Against a fighter like Alexandra Kane, he could suffer permanent damage or worse." Emily couldn't disagree, but she had come to understand Jack's deeper motivation. It's not just about winning for him. It's about showing what's possible. Jack's matchup against Alexandra Kane was scheduled as the headline fight of the quarterfinals. Alexandra was not just a top-ranked fighter. She was a former military operative whose enhancements had been developed for special forces applications before being modified for competitive use. News outlets across Earth and the colonies covered the upcoming match with a mixture of morbid fascination and genuine excitement. The narrative had shifted from viewing Jack as a curiosity to recognizing him as a symbol. For the naturals, he represented validation of their choice to remain unenhanced. For some of the enhanced, he had become a concerning reminder of what unmodified humans might still be capable of. The night before the match, Jack sat alone in the UCC competitor housing, reviewing footage of Alexandra's previous fights. Unlike his first two opponents, Alexandra fought with cold precision. Her enhancements were not flashy, but ruthlessly efficient. She analyzed opponents, identified weaknesses, and exploited them systematically. Emily found him still studying in the early hours of the morning. "You should be resting," she said, concerned by the dark circles under his eyes. Jack nodded toward the holographic display. "She has a pattern. It's subtle, but it's there." 3 minutes into each match, her neural processor runs a comprehensive assessment of her opponent's fighting style. During that millisecond of additional processing, there's a barely perceptible pause in her reaction time. Emily looked at the time code on the footage. "Jack, even if that's true, the difference is measured in microseconds. No unenhanced human could possibly exploit that." Jack smiled faintly. "I don't need to be as fast as she is. I just need to be where she doesn't expect me to be." The arena was at maximum capacity for the quarter-final match. Security had been increased after pro-natural activists had staged demonstrations outside the UCC headquarters, demanding rule changes to create more equality between enhanced and natural competitors. When Jack entered the arena, the crowd noise reached deafening levels. He moved stiffly, his injuries evident despite his attempts to hide them. Alexandra waited at the center, her expression neutral, her enhanced eyes analyzing his every movement. "I've studied your previous matches," she said as they faced off. "Your victories were impressive but relied on the arrogance and inexperience of your opponents. I have neither of those weaknesses." Jack acknowledged her with a respectful nod. "Then, this should be interesting." From the first exchange, it was clear that Alexandra was in a different league from Jack's previous opponents. She moved with precision that bordered on precognition, each strike calculated to cause maximum damage with minimum energy expenditure. Jack's defensive techniques, which had saved him in previous matches, now barely kept him alive. By the 2-minute mark, Jack had absorbed punishing blows to his already injured ribs and a kick to his knee that would have crippled most unenhanced humans. The medical monitors were registering distress signals, and Emily watched in horror as Jack's vitals fluctuated dangerously. "He can't take much more of this," the medical supervisor muttered, finger hovering over the emergency stop button. Just as it seemed the match would be stopped, Jack began to change his approach. Instead of trying to defend against Alexandra's superior speed and strength, he started using the environment, bouncing off the flexible arena walls, sliding across the surface, creating distance, and forcing Alexandra to adjust her positioning. At precisely 3 minutes into the match, Jack executed his plan. He feinted toward Alexandra, then abruptly changed direction. For the microsecond that her systems ran their comprehensive assessment, Jack positioned himself exactly where her next calculated strike would land, and then wasn't there. The missed strike threw off Alexandra's perfect balance just enough for Jack to execute a desperate gambit. He drove his elbow into a specific point on her spine, the location of her central neural hub. The impact didn't damage the well-protected enhancement, but it triggered a fail-safe reboot, a standard feature in military-grade systems designed to prevent cascade failures. For 1.8 seconds, Alexandra's enhancements went offline. In those precious moments, Jack used the last of his strength to execute a textbook submission hold, leveraging her temporarily unenhanced body weight against her. When her systems came back online, Alexandra found herself in a position that her enhanced strength could easily break, but doing so would cause catastrophic damage to her unenhanced skeletal structure. The rules of the UCC were clear. Such a counter would result in immediate disqualification. After 3 seconds of calculation, Alexandra tapped out. The arena erupted. Jack had achieved the impossible for a third time. He had defeated one of the top enhanced fighters not through superior strength or speed, but through an understanding of the fundamental vulnerabilities in the human-machine interface. As medical teams rushed to attend to both fighters, Alexandra looked at Jack with newfound respect. "How did you know about the assessment pause?" she asked. "That information is classified." Jack, barely conscious, managed a pained smile. "I didn't. I just watched you fight and saw a human beneath the enhancements." Jack's victory over Alexandra Kane transformed him overnight from an oddity to a phenomenon. Natural communities celebrated wildly, and for the first time in decades, enhancement clinics reported cancellations as some people reconsidered their plans to modify themselves. The UCC's viewing figures shattered all previous records, and Jack Reed became the most discussed sports figure in the solar system. But the physical cost had been extreme. Jack was immediately placed in intensive medical care after the match. His body pushed far beyond normal human endurance. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, and severe concussion left doctors pessimistic about his ability to continue in the tournament. "Medically speaking, you should withdraw," the chief physician told Jack. "Your body simply cannot sustain another match against an enhanced opponent." Jack lay in the recovery pod, breathing oxygen-enriched air as regenerative therapies, ironically, developed from the same technology that powered enhancements, worked to accelerate his healing. "I need to continue," he said weakly. "I'm proving something important." Emily, who had barely left his side since the match, shook her head in frustration. "You've already proven it, Jack. 3 victories against enhanced fighters. No one can say it was luck or flukes anymore." But Jack remained resolute. His semi-final opponent would be Victor Roth, the defending UCC champion for the past 5 years. Victor's enhancements were custom-built, proprietary systems that represented the cutting edge of human augmentation. Unlike previous opponents, who specialized in particular aspects of combat, Victor was the complete package: enhanced strength, speed, reaction time, and tactical processing. Most concerning of all, Victor had been watching Jack's matches with intense interest, studying the natural's techniques and strategies. The element of surprise that had been crucial to Jack's previous victories would be significantly diminished. Tournament regulations mandated a week between quarterfinals and semifinals, giving competitors time to recover and prepare. Jack used every minute of that time. While his body healed, he worked with Emily to develop a new approach. "Victor will have countermeasures for everything I've done so far," Jack explained as they reviewed footage. "I need something completely different." Emily had fully committed to Jack's cause, using her expertise in physiology to help maximize his natural potential. "You've been fighting reactively, adapting to enhanced techniques. What if you force Victor to fight your kind of fight instead?" The idea sparked something in Jack. For the next days, he focused on developing a fighting style that would be completely unfamiliar to modern enhanced fighters, drawing on historical martial arts that had been forgotten in the enhancement era, techniques that prioritized efficiency over spectacle. On the day of the semi-final, the UCC arena was surrounded by both supporters and protesters. The rise of a natural champion had become a political issue, with some calling for segregated competitions, while others demanded a reassessment of the role of enhancement in society. Victor Roth waited in the arena, his enhanced physique a testament to the pinnacle of human technological achievement. When Jack entered, moving more fluidly than anyone expected given his injuries, Victor acknowledged him with genuine respect. "You've accomplished something remarkable," Victor said, "but I've analyzed every move you've made in this tournament. Your advantage of unpredictability is gone." Jack settled into a stance that would have been familiar to martial artists centuries ago, but looked strange and antiquated to modern eyes. There's always something new to learn. When the match began, Victor didn't rush in like Jack's previous opponents. He moved cautiously, his enhanced systems constantly analyzing Jack's positioning and potential moves. Jack, meanwhile, maintained a centered posture, conserving energy and waiting. The first minute passed with minimal engagement, a stark contrast to the frenetic pace of most enhanced fights. The crowd grew restless, but those with knowledge of combat strategies recognized the psychological battle unfolding. Victor's enhancements gave him overwhelming advantages in direct combat, but they couldn't force Jack to engage on those terms. 2 minutes in, Victor launched a series of lightning-fast strikes designed to force Jack to reveal his strategy. Jack defended minimally, absorbing some impacts while evading others, all while maintaining a fighting distance that kept him just at the edge of Victor's optimal attack range. "Interesting approach," Victor commented, "but ultimately futile. You can't win without attacking, and you can't attack without exposing yourself to my counterattacks." Jack didn't respond. He maintained his focus, his breathing controlled despite the exertion. What Victor couldn't know was that Jack was implementing a strategy based on ancient principles of combat that had been overlooked in the modern era. Principles that recognized that sometimes the greatest strength came from apparent weakness. As the match progressed into its 5th minute, Jack began to make seemingly small errors, leaving openings in his defense, hesitating fractionally on his counters. Victor's enhanced tactical systems identified these vulnerabilities and calculated the optimal responses. What Victor's systems couldn't calculate was that Jack was deliberately creating these openings, building a pattern that would condition Victor's tactical algorithms to expect certain responses. It was a strategy that relied on the predictive nature of enhancement technology, the very feature that was supposed to make Victor unbeatable. In the 7th minute, Jack executed his true strategy. He suddenly switched to a completely different, fighting style, violating the pattern his previous movements had established. Victor's systems, which had been learning and predicting based on Jack's previous actions, momentarily struggled to recalibrate. In that fraction of a second, Jack struck, not at Victor's body, but at specific points in his stance that compromised his balance. The champion staggered, his enhanced reflexes working against him as they tried to correct based on now invalid predictions. Jack pressed the advantage, using Victor's momentary confusion to execute a series of precise strikes aimed not at causing damage but at disrupting the integration between Victor's natural movement and his enhancements. The crowd watched in disbelief as the unenhanced fighter maneuvered the champion into increasingly defensive positions. Victor's expressions shifted from confidence to concern to grudging admiration as he recognized the elegance of Jack's strategy. In the final minute of the match, Victor launched a desperate attack, using the full capability of his enhancements, in a series of moves that would have incapacitated any previous opponent. Jack took a punishing hit to his shoulder that sent him sprawling across the arena floor. Victor moved in for the finishing blow, but Jack had positioned himself precisely where he needed to be. As Victor committed to his attack, Jack executed a counter that used the champion's momentum and weight against him, leveraging principles of physics that no amount of enhancement could overcome. Victor crashed to the mat, his position such that he couldn't recover without risking serious injury to his organic components. After a moment of calculation, he tapped out. The arena fell silent before erupting into the loudest response in UCC history. Jack Reed, the natural, had reached the finals of a competition that had been dominated by the enhanced for over a decade. Medics attended to both fighters. Victor grasped Jack's hand. "You didn't just outfight me," he said with genuine admiration. "You outthought me. Perhaps we've been looking at enhancement all wrong." News of Jack's victory over Victor Roth spread far beyond sports circles. It became a cultural inflection point, challenging fundamental assumptions about human potential in the enhancement era. Philosophical debates erupted across academic institutions and media platforms about the nature of humanity and the role of technology in human evolution. For Jack, however, there was little time to contemplate the broader implications of his success. The championship final loomed just days away, and his opponent would be the most formidable yet, Alara Nash, whose enhancements represented the absolute pinnacle of human-machine integration. Unlike other enhanced fighters who relied primarily on physical augmentations, Alara's enhancements focused on cognitive processing and neural integration. Her fighting style was described by analysts as predictive perfection. She could anticipate opponents' moves before they themselves had, fully formed the intention to make them. In the days leading up to the final, media coverage reached fever pitch. Jack's journey from unknown natural to UCC finalist had captured the imagination of people across the solar system. Documentary teams compiled profiles on his background, pundits debated his chances, and betting markets fluctuated wildly as opinions, divided between those who believed in the natural's seemingly impossible streak and those who were certain Alara's advanced enhancements would prove insurmountable. Jack's recovery between the semifinal and final was complicated by the cumulative damage his body had sustained throughout the tournament. Even with advanced medical treatments, he was functioning at severely reduced capacity. "Your body has endured trauma that would have killed most unenhanced humans," Emily told him during a physical therapy session. "You've proven your point. No one would blame you for withdrawing now?" Jack winced as he tested his injured shoulder. This was never about proving a point to others. It was about proving something to ourselves. That humanity hasn't reached its limits, that there's still value in our natural state. Emily had noticed a change in Jack since his match with Victor. A quiet confidence had replaced his earlier determination, as if each victory had revealed something not just about his capabilities, but about the nature of human potential itself. "Alara's different from your previous opponents," Emily warned. "Her enhancements are designed specifically to counter adaptability. She doesn't just react to what you do, she predicts what you're going to do before you do it." Jack nodded. "Which means conventional strategy is useless. I can't outthink someone whose brain processes information 1,000 times faster than mine. I need a different approach entirely." The day before the final, Jack did something unexpected. He requested a meeting with Alara Nash. Such pre-match meetings were unusual but not forbidden under UCC rules. Alara, intrigued, agreed. They met in a neutral conference room at UCC headquarters, away from the media and spectators. Alara was tall and poised, her enhancements subtle compared to some fighters but no less powerful. Only the faint neural interface nodes at her temples and the unusual iridescence of her eyes hinted at the technology that augmented her natural abilities. "I've been looking forward to meeting you," she said, studying Jack with enhanced perception that could detect his heart rate, body temperature, and microscopic muscle movements. "You've disrupted a lot of assumptions about naturals and enhanced." "That's partly why I wanted to meet," Jack replied. "Tomorrow's match is more than a championship bout. It's become symbolic of larger questions facing our society." Alara nodded. "The relationship between natural human potential and technological enhancement, the question of what we gain and lose when we integrate machines with our biology." "Exactly," Jack said. "Regardless of who wins tomorrow, people will draw conclusions about those questions based on the outcome." "And what conclusion are you hoping they'll draw?" Alara asked. Jack considered his words carefully. That enhancement and natural ability aren't necessarily opposing forces. That what makes us human isn't defined by the presence or absence of technology, but by something more fundamental. Alara seemed genuinely interested. For someone who has chosen to remain unenhanced, that's a surprisingly nuanced perspective. "I'm not against enhancement," Jack explained. "I'm against the assumption that it's the only path forward for humanity. Technology should expand human potential, not replace it." Their conversation continued for nearly an hour, ranging from philosophy to the technical aspects of combat to personal experiences. By the end, both fighters had gained a deeper understanding not just of their opponent, but of the significance of their upcoming match. As they prepared to leave, Alara made an unexpected offer. The UCC has always been structured to showcase the capabilities of enhancement. The rules, the scoring system, the arena itself, all designed for enhanced competition. "Would you be open to a modification for our match?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "What kind of modification?" "A more neutral ground," Alara suggested. "A format that doesn't inherently favor either enhancement or natural ability. After all, if this match is going to be symbolic, shouldn't it be as fair as possible?" The UCC Commission, after considerable deliberation, approved a modified rule set for the championship final. The changes were subtle but significant. Adjustments to scoring criteria, alterations to the arena configuration, and most importantly, the introduction of variable environmental conditions that would change at random intervals during the match. These modifications created elements of unpredictability that neither pure calculation nor physical prowess alone could fully address. It would be a test not just of enhanced versus natural capabilities, but of the fundamental adaptability that had defined human success for millennia. On the day of the final, the UCC arena was filled beyond capacity. The match was being broadcast to every corner of human civilization, from the crowded megacities of Earth to the farthest colonial outposts. For perhaps the first time since the enhancement era began, enhanced and naturals alike were united in their anticipation of the historic contest. As Jack prepared in his chamber, Emily helped him with final stretches and mental focusing exercises. "Whatever happens out there," she said, "you've already changed everything." Jack nodded, his expression serene despite the enormity of the challenge ahead. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the fight. It's changing the conversation about what's possible. The UCC arena fell silent as Jack and Alara took their positions. The modified arena featured variable terrain sections that would shift throughout the match, creating unpredictable fighting conditions. Environmental factors, gravity fluctuations, atmospheric adjustments, lighting changes, would activate randomly, challenging both competitors' adaptability. Alara stood poised and centered, her enhanced systems already analyzing the arena's potential configurations. Jack maintained a relaxed stance, his focus absolute despite the pain from his accumulated injuries. "Fighters ready," announced the primary referee. "Championship final begins in 3, 2, 1. The match began not with the explosive exchange, typical of enhanced competitions, but with careful movement as both fighters assessed the arena and each other. Jack and Alara circled, each watching for openings while revealing nothing of their strategies. The first environmental change came 2 minutes in, a subtle gravity shift that increased weight by 15%. Alara's enhancements compensated automatically, adjusting her balance and muscle output. Jack felt the increased drag on his movements but adapted his fighting style accordingly, conserving energy and using the increased gravity to add power to his strikes when they came. Unlike Jack's previous matches, this contest wasn't simply about surviving against superior technology. The modified rules and variable conditions created a more level playing field, where Alara's predictive capabilities were partially offset by the randomness of the arena itself. "Interesting approach," Alara commented after they'd exchanged a series of probing strikes. "You're fighting differently than in your previous matches." Jack maintained his focus. Every opponent requires a different strategy. What Alara couldn't know was that Jack had developed not one strategy but several, prepared to shift between them based on arena conditions and her responses. It was the approach that maximized the one advantage he had over enhanced fighters: creative, adaptation unbound by algorithmic thinking. 10 minutes into the match, neither fighter had gained a significant advantage. Jack had absorbed several punishing blows but had also landed effective strikes of his own. Alara's enhanced recovery meant she showed no signs of fatigue, while Jack's breathing had become labored, his movements fractionally slower. The arena shifted again, terrain reconfiguring to create a series of elevated platforms and depressions. Simultaneously, the lighting dimmed to near darkness before pulsing in a pattern that would disorient normal human vision. Alara's enhanced eyes adjusted instantly, giving her a momentary advantage that she pressed with a flurry of precise strikes. Jack weathered the assault, relying on proprioception and spatial awareness rather than visual input. As the match progressed into its 15th minute, longer than any of Jack's previous contests, the physical toll on his unenhanced body became increasingly evident. Medical monitors showed his vital signs approaching dangerous levels, and Emily watched anxiously from the sidelines, prepared to signal for intervention if necessary. Alara, recognizing Jack's fatigue, increased the tempo of her attacks, forcing him to expend precious energy on defense. "You've fought admirably," she said during a brief clinch, "but enhancement exists for a reason. The human body has limits." Jack disengaged, creating distance as the arena shifted again. "Limits exist to be understood," he replied, "not just overcome." In that moment, Jack implemented what Emily had called his impossible strategy: a complete surrender to the present. Instead of trying to anticipate Alara's enhanced reactions or plan several moves ahead, Jack entered a state of pure responsiveness, a mental condition that ancient martial artists had called no mind. Where enhanced fighters processed billions of calculations per second, mapping out probability trees of action and reaction, Jack emptied his mind of calculation entirely. Each movement arose not from prediction or planning, but from immediate response to the present moment. This approach confounded Alara's predictive algorithms. Her system struggled to generate reliable forecasts against an opponent who had no predetermined intentions to predict. Jack became, in essence, a quantum variable in what her enhancements expected to be a deterministic equation. "Your pattern recognition is failing," Jack said during a momentary pause as they circled each other. "Because I'm not following patterns anymore." Alara's expression shifted from confident to puzzled to intrigued. Her enhancements were reporting anomalies in their behavioral predictions, forcing her to rely more on her natural instincts. Instincts that had been overshadowed by technology for years. "You've trained yourself to achieve a state of pure improvisation," she realized. Fascinating. The match entered its 20th minute as the arena transformed again, this time creating a series of unstable surfaces that shifted under their weight. Alara's enhancements calculated optimal foot placement automatically, but the constant adjustments created a processing burden that subtly delayed her reactions. Jack, moving by feel rather than calculation, found himself at a momentary advantage. He pressed forward with a series of strikes that drove Alara toward the arena's edge. For the first time in the match, the champion seemed genuinely defensive. The crowd sensed the shift in momentum. Natural supporters erupted in cheers while enhanced spectators watched in disbelief as their champion struggled to regain dominance against an opponent with no technological advantages. But Alara hadn't become champion through enhancement alone. Recognizing the limitations of her predictive systems against Jack's approach, she made a crucial decision. She partially disengaged her neural enhancements, reducing their influence on her fighting style. "Two can play at that game," she said, her movements becoming more fluid, less precise, but more creative. The final minutes of the match transformed into something the UCC had never seen before. A contest where technology and natural ability were secondary to the pure art of adaptation. Both fighters abandoned conventional strategies, responding to each other and to the constantly changing arena, with movements that blended instinct, experience, and the fundamental kinesthetic intelligence that predated all enhancements. With 30 seconds remaining, the arena made its final transformation. Gravity reduced to lunar levels, creating an environment where neither fighter had experience. In the sudden near weightlessness, Alara's precisely calibrated strikes lost much of their impact, while Jack's lifetime of adapting to different circumstances allowed him to adjust more quickly. In the match's final moments, Jack executed a move that would be studied for decades afterward. Using the reduced gravity to launch himself off an unstable platform, twisting in midair to avoid Alara's counter, and applying a submission hold that utilized the unique physics of the environment. Alara, caught in a position her enhancements hadn't predicted, found herself unable to generate sufficient leverage to escape without risking injury. With 3 seconds left on the clock, she tapped out. The arena erupted in chaos. Jack Reed, the natural, had done the impossible, defeated the most advanced enhanced fighters in the system to become UCC champion. Natural communities across Earth and the colonies exploded in celebration. Enhanced observers sat in stunned silence. Their fundamental assumptions about the superiority of technological augmentation suddenly called into question. As medical teams rushed to attend to both fighters, Alara helped Jack to his feet. His body was pushed far beyond normal human endurance, barely able to stand without support. "Congratulations, champion," she said with genuine respect. "You've shown us something important today." Jack nodded through his exhaustion. "Not that natural is better than enhanced, just that we shouldn't forget what made us human in the first place." The aftermath of Jack's victory extended far beyond sports. The UCC championship became a catalyst for societal reevaluation of the relationship between human potential and technological enhancement. Research institutions established new programs studying the untapped capabilities of unmodified humans, while enhancement developers began exploring technologies that worked with natural human adaptability rather than replacing it. 6 months after his historic victory, Jack established the Reed Foundation for Human Potential, dedicated to exploring the complementary relationship between natural abilities and technological advancement. With Emily as its chief research officer, the Foundation quickly became a leading voice in the emerging philosophy of integrated progress. The idea that true human advancement came not from abandoning our nature for technology, but from finding the optimal balance between the two. Alara Nash became one of the Foundation's most vocal supporters. Her experience fighting Jack had led her to develop new enhancement protocols that preserved and amplified natural human adaptability rather than overriding it with pure calculation. At the opening of the Foundation's headquarters, Jack addressed a crowd of both enhanced and naturals. His injuries healed, but his perspective permanently transformed by his journey. The question was never whether enhancement or natural ability was superior, he told them. The question was whether we remembered that technology should serve human potential, not define its limits. Against all odds, we found an answer. Together we are greater than either could be alone. As humanity moved forward into an uncertain future, the legacy of Jack Reed's impossible championship remained a powerful reminder. In the story of human progress, technology was just one chapter in a much longer narrative of adaptation, perseverance, and the enduring strength of the human spirit.